Good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to watch my ThingLink. These are the ISTE standards for educators, and the goal of this assignment was to pick 4 of the 7 options and explain our goals for when we're educators. I started with learner, and I have put that this education class has already taught me so much more than I knew before we started. My goal for the rest of this class is to continue to absorb information that I didn't have beforehand that I can incorporate in my own classroom. I want my future students to be able to learn in a multitude of ways using technology or without. I want them to have the options to choose. I originally thought this class would be quite different than what it has been so far. I've actually come to enjoy going and getting the opportunity to use these new outlets for learning. And I look forward to taking what I learned during this semester and inputting it into my own classroom. That way I can continue to learn, and I can also help my students learn something they might not have known before. All right, number 2 is citizen. I put that my own goal as a citizen is to inspire my students. I want them to look at me and see someone that they can look up to, that they can learn from, and that they can trust. I want to be able to use technology in a positive way to show my students that there's not just social media and liking pictures, but that you can impact your community and help your environment all through technology. I want my students to be able to make a difference, even if it's from inside the 4 walls of our classroom or their home, whether they actually go out or if they decide to use what I give them to interact with people elsewhere. I want them to be able to stand up for themselves, their community, and others around the world. And I feel like technology is a great way for them to connect and to learn from one another. Thirdly is collaborator. I used to be big on being a solo person, learning for yourself, doing for yourself, and what you know is what you know. But so far throughout my college education, I've learned that teamwork and collaboration is a huge part of both teaching and learning. Just because you think one thing works the best doesn't mean there isn't another way that works equally the same. And if you're in a classroom with 30 students, not all 30 students are going to learn and absorb the information in the same way. So as an educator or future educator, it's very important for me to be able to learn many different outlets that I can use in my own classroom so that students have multiple resources to use for them to learn. I want my students to be able to learn in the best way that they can. I want them to succeed. That's the goal of any educator, I assume, is that they want their students to get the best education from their classroom as they can. And why not take ideas and feedback from teachers that have been teaching longer than I have, and fresh teachers out of college once I've been teaching for a while, getting new ideas, new ways to teach things, new ways for students to learn and interact with each other. Technology will be a huge part in that because technology is always evolving and changing and offering new ways for me to both teach and for my students to learn. I want students to be able to accomplish tasks and think in multiple ways. I don't want them to be single-minded or think that only one way works. I want to make sure my students are diverse in how they learn and how they understand. And lastly is facilitator. I actually worked on this section during one of our classroom meetings, and it stood out to me because I always thought that when you use technology in your classroom, you were giving technology control in what your students are learning. But through this class, I have learned that that teachers are still very much needed, whether technology is being used or not. As I said here, my role as a facilitator is to ensure that my students know how to properly use the piece of technology that I am presenting them with. It is my goal as an educator to make sure that they are using the technology appropriately and that they understand. And then once students have grasped how to use what they're going to be working with in class that day, it is then my role to observe, to walk the classroom, to assist any students that are having issues or they still have lingering questions. Just because we decide to use technology, it does not mean that we as teachers are obsolete. We are still needed to make the lesson plans to ensure that the technology is working, that the students understand, and sometimes students have questions that a computer or a tablet can't answer, and we as teachers are there to come up and speak with them and help them understand. And with using technology in the classroom, I'm able to set up the lesson, but then the students are able to work at their own pace. They don't have to try and keep up with the rest of the class or wait for the rest of the class. They have what they need in front of them, and how quickly or how slowly they decide to work through it is their choice. It makes them feel more comfortable that they are actually going to understand by the time they leave my classroom. I would hate to think that any of my students would be confused or frustrated that they didn't get what they needed from that class today. And even if they, for some reason, still are, I am available for questions and any concerns that the technology we use in the classroom couldn't answer for them. Overall, these 7 sections for the education standards and technology are all beneficial. They will help us as educators, or myself as an educator, make sure that I am properly using technology and that I am putting it to its best use in my classroom for my students and for myself. I look forward to further understanding the standards myself and how I will be able to implement them in my own classroom in the future. And I look forward to what else I will learn throughout this semester in this class. Thank you for listening and watching, and have a great day.